Tuesday, August 24th, 2021. All right, I made a video the other day and I was kind of hard on these paints, the craft paints. I want to get right into this. And I need to apologize. I was wrong. You kind of need these paints. They're a little difficult to use. You're going to need to strain them, get you a fine mesh strainer from like the paint store, and end up tearing the mesh out of there, clean it up really good, fold it up, and strain all your paint. It's kind of like an extra little step. Just use floor gloss to thin it. Works fine. You're going to get a little tip dry. Again, these things are a little more difficult to use, but they have their place. You want to use them through a bigger tip, bigger than a 0.5, something like this Badger 155 siphon gun. It's got a pretty good sized tip in there. Or ultimately, you want to spray it through a cup gun, something with a 1mm tip. You want to move some paint here. These work best with a wide open trigger. You want to start out in the middle of the area and then fade down and do your borders and stuff. So it's a kind of almost a little different technique you need to be able to spray these things efficiently. And you're not going to do any micron. You're not going to spray these through a micron and get them to work really well. Actually, and again, this Folk Art Licorice 4143E won't focus. That stuff works pretty good, and it makes a nice dark line. You don't need to thin it a whole lot with the floor gloss, and it sprays pretty decent out of like a 0.5 tip. And the reason you want to use these, especially when you're starting out, you want to start doing some freehand stuff. You want to start doing some cartoons. Simple stuff, kind of like Chester Cheetah here. This is all cheap craft paint. I did a light pencil sketch on there. I did these back in 19, like 3 years ago, or 2 years ago. And, the colors aren't bad. I mixed the yellow and red together to make the orange, and I used his straight yellow for his nose there. And I think I had black. And if you look at this is pretty crummy job here. Double lines, a lot of overspray, a little too much thinning of the paint there. Well, actually, you can see some pencil line through there where I started and didn't quite get the pencil line. And it's a little rough. It's a little powdery, a lot of overspray there. Tried to get some fine lines in there, didn't quite get it. But again, from a distance, hey, looks pretty good. Looks like Chester Cheetah, doesn't it? So, and again, that's where you start out. Baby steps. You need to doodle. You need to get a fun project. Here, look. This is what I pulled the craft paints back out for. I did this the other night. I sketched out, or started to sketch out, and I cut a stencil for his eyes, and then I shot the stencil on there. And then I just said, forget it. I'm just going to freehand the whole thing in there, and that's what I did. And you can see there's a lot of double lines, a lot of really sloppy, stupid, crooked, not perfectly straight. But again, when you get back, it looks pretty good. Looks pretty darn good. And again, this is just a doodle, but that's what you want to do. You want to doodle. You want to get a gun out. You want to try to spray it wide open. Like I said, when you start spraying this, you're not paying attention to anything. You're just spraying over everything. I'm spraying over the edge. Come in with a white later. Come back with another black line later. And you're starting out in the middle here, and you open the gun up all the way, and then you throttle it off, throttle it down, and you come out and you do your edges, and you're filling in, and you're constantly moving the brush, and you're just doodling. You're doodling, and you start out with Rick, and he was a little too gray, and I lightened him up, put some more, and you want to load loads of paint on here. Just go over it again, come back in, fill it in again, come back, cover it over, and actually I need to go over, and these are all faded out and shaded over. I need to redo all the edges on this. But again, get back and look at it, not that bad. I never colored in the stuff on his chin either. And, look at all these lines. These need to be darkened up, all of them. But again, you get back, you look at it, it's a doodle. It's just pumping paint to the gun. And I did the two characters there, and then I had a blank background, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do for the background? So I was like, hey, I'm going to make it look like a porthole, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do this. So I came in with some yellow and I made some squiggly lines and back and forth. And I tried to just go around the whole thing dancing with some yellow. Then I came in with some green and yellow and kind of filled in between the squiggles and started doing some of that. And then I got some paint mixed up too thin at one point and did a spider blowout. So I was like, oh, well, let's just go with that. Put a bunch of spider blowouts all through the whole thing. Fill it up. Come in with some darker green. Come in and just spot all that in. And you're just blowing paint, just shooting stuff, doing little designs, doing little squigglies, doing more different stuff. You can put smiley faces, do something. And then if you see something coming out, oh, hey, there's a cobra there. You can fill that in and paint that. A double-headed cobra, oh, you can put that in there. And just, once the paint starts flowing, everything starts flowing. You want to pump some paint through the gun. Use the thing wide open and then narrow it down and come in and do some little squiggly details, little dot, 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 whatever you're going to do. Change colors, mix up 4 cups at a time of colors when you're doing that. And fun little project. So there's 2 projects for you. Chester Cheetah, Rick and Morty, and then you're like sci-fi. Oh, let's do sci-fi. This is Gort. This is my first Gort from the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1961. And it's kind of screwed up. Straight shoulder, round shoulder. Oh, that's not right. Visor sticking way out. It's not supposed to. It should be kind of flush. I changed all that. I recut the stencil, did a couple more of these. And that's all the Createx paint. You can see the shine on that thing when you move across there. See the lustrous glow of that? That's because that's not a very thick load of paint. It's very thin and it's on a glossy board, and that's just how that comes out. That's the difference between the Createx paint. But that's not to say you can't use these. These will shoot color. Color's not that bad. I mean, it's not as vivid as like the Createx colors, but when you put that on a wall and stand up there, you got some color on the wall. Same thing with Chester Cheetah. You put them up there. Hey, there's Chester Cheetah. You can see that. Oh, there's a little novelty item. Yeah, that's the first gun I ever owned. First spray gun I ever bought back in, well, let's just say they stopped making these by the early 80s, I believe. And I spray mostly glue out of that right now. But yeah, I've been spraying paint for a long, long time. And get something with a big tip. I got some old Sears Craftsman guns around here that would probably shoot big cup guns. They got a big, huge bottle on them somewhere here. Or no, here's Pache. I got some Pache, and I got a couple Sears Craftsman brushes that take these big bottles. I think this bottle will actually fit on there too. Again, you got to be really careful with glass. I'd probably opt to get the plastic bottles, but again, a lot of my stuff is vintage. That thing's probably 30, 40 years. I almost dropped it right there. But yeah, you're going to kind of need to use these craft paints. Get used to them. I made this thinner, the 1/3 alcohol, 2/3 water with a little bit of Floetrol in there. I just use that for cleaning out, rinsing out the brush. If you're going to thin these things, just use some floor gloss. It works great, works fine. You get a little or a lot of tip dry on them. Just, the nature of the beast. You start throwing water and alcohol in there, makes it really thin, really fast, and you kind of still get a lot of the tip dry. So just, get a big tip, a big gun. Actually, a cup gun like this, see, that needle doesn't stick out like a airbrush does. So when you pull this back, the needle's not getting dry. It disappears. It disappears until you let off the needle, and then it comes back and shuts the paint off. So you're going to get a lot less tip dry in something like this. And I mean, you can practically spray road tar through that thing. I mean, that thing will shoot anything. It's not going to be quite as smooth, but it pumps the paint. It does a good job. I got a UFO. You can't really see it. That's a UFO up there. Southwest desert scene with some mountains in there. Kind of should have maybe pulled that out. I got a cactus that's you can't quite see behind the TV there, and I did these weeds, and that's all cheap paint. And if I pulled that out and looked at it, you can't even focus on it. You know, you got rocks in there, you got shadows, you got bushes, you got other cactuses and stuff in there. It has a little bit of depth in there, but your eye is still drawn to the UFO in the sky and the weeds and the sunset just filling there. But I sprayed that whole sky, the whole sunset, with this cup gun in probably less than 30 seconds. I shot the white on there, I dumped the yellow in, I shot the yellow, I rinsed the yellow out with a garden hose, I threw some blue in, I shot the blue on, and that was it. I rinsed it out and I was done. Let that dry real good, and then I shot the mountains on with a airbrush and the I think it was burnt umber paint, and done. Shoot the paint, shoot some big old doodles. Just doodle with your brush, move some paint through it, use the cheap paint, and then after you've got your design down or you want to do something a little finer, yeah, get some nice airbrush paints and try using them. It's going to be a lot easier. You're going to be amazed at your results, but you're going to learn a lot just pumping stupid cheap paint through there. So go ahead and get some. Again, that licorice, probably the best black that I've used in this paint. I probably want to try some other folk arc. The evergreen here, I couldn't get that to shoot very well. Maybe I didn't have it thinned very well. You have to thin it, over thin it a little bit, and shoot it kind of light, not overdo it and spider blow it out. But yeah, make you a Rick and Morty, make you a whatever you're into, Teletubbies, Smurfs, or Flintstones, Chester Cheetah. I've got a project I got an idea for last night I'm going to start on right now. But yeah, don't throw out your cheap craft paints. They're fun, and you need to doodle. So doodle away. Doodle doodle.